Organizational meeting of the Berry County Board of Commissioners is called to order. For the purpose of attendance, I will now call roll. Doster?
Present.
Fulton?
Present.
Getty?
Here.
Hatfield?
Present.
Campbell?
Here.
Tunison?
Here.
Jackson?
Here.
The clerk would enter, will the commissioners, staff, and guests please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Say.
The clerk would entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved. Getty.
Support Hatfield.
Moved by Getty, seconded by Hatfield, to approve the agenda as written. All those in favor, please say aye. State aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The agenda is approved as written. The first item is the election of chairperson. Michigan law allows for the election of the chairperson by secret ballot. Does any commissioner wish to move that this vote be by secret ballot? There being no such request, we will now entertain nominations for the board chairperson. The floor is open for nominations.
I nominate David Jackson for chairperson.
I second that.
I move that nominations be closed.
Commissioner Colton,
Support.
supported by Jackson, has nominated,
No, supported by
I'm sorry,
Tunison.
supported by Tunison, has nominated Jackson for chairperson. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I, the clerk, would entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2401, resolution for the election of David Jackson as board chairperson for 2024.
So moved.
Support Hatfield.
Moved by Colton, seconded by Hatfield for adoption of Resolution 2401, resolution for the election of Commissioner Jackson as board chairperson for 2024. I will now call the roll. Doster?
Aye.
Colton?
Aye.
Getty?
Aye.
Hatfield?
Aye.
Campbell?
Aye.
Tunison?
Aye.
Jackson?
Aye.
There being a majority of commissioners in support, I declare the resolution adopted, and Chair Jackson is duly elected chair of the Board of Commissioners.
Thank you, my fellow commissioners. I appreciate that. I appreciate your vote of confidence. Election of vice chairperson. The
Mr.
floor is now open for,
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that Commissioner Hatfield become vice chair.
Support.
other nominations? Hearing none, the floor is closed for nominations. I move for the adoption. Okay, election of board. I move for the adoption of Resolution 24-02, a resolution for the election of board vice chair for 2024 with David Hatfield. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we have a resolution, whereas the Board of Commissioners in open session considered nominations for vice chairperson, the Berry County Board of Commissioners for 2024, and whereas the board is recommending that Commissioner David Hatfield be elected as the vice chairperson for 2024, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners elects Commissioner Hatfield to be vice chair of the Berry County Board of Commissioners for 2024. Somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
Support Campbell.
Motion by Tunison, support by Campbell. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Does a resolution have to be,
I was going to ask
Roll
Michael,
call.
do we need a roll call vote on that? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Doster?
aye,
Colton?
Aye.
Getty?
Aye.
Hatfield?
Aye.
Campbell? Tunison?
Aye.
Jackson?
Aye. The resolution is approved. Congratulations, Commissioner Hatfield.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, moving on with our agenda, limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes. Our first public commenter of 2024, come on down.
Yeah, maybe.
What do I get? Oh, Sharon Zabrowski, Carlton Township. Congratulations. 2023 was a good year for you commissioners. You accomplished a lot and started laying the groundwork for much more. All of this while fending off those who wanted to control and sidetrack you. However, don't let up on the gas in 2024 because there's still a lot more to be done. There's still a jail to build, getting affordable housing, making good use of the land, the health department issues, finishing the COA building project, millage votes to get, parks and trails, and my favorite, Charlton Park, Education Village and Museum, just to name a few. And all of this in an election year. It isn't going to be easy, but a real challenge to say the least. But you were elected because people know you will stay focused on what needs to be done, and you'll always do what's best for the entire county, not just what a small group wants you to do. I know you're going to make 2024 an even better year than 2023. Thank you.
I'm tired just hearing that. Thank you, Sharon. Additional public comment? Hearing none, we will move ahead with our agenda. Adoption of board rules. We had a little bit of conversation about a few things on there. One of the things I talked with Michael about was simply adding on our cow agenda the same thing we have on our BOC, which gives us a slot to state, county officials, and department heads ahead of public comment. So when people are coming in from the county, from different departments, whether it's a judge or a department head or whatever, just to be able to address the board if there's an update or information we need, the sheriff, whatever the case is like that. I thought that would be a pretty simple update, and it's not really a change to the board rules as much as it's just a change to our cow agenda since it's already on our BOC. Is that acceptable, Michael?
If that's what the board would like, absolutely we can do that.
Discussion on that?
I agree with that.
Okay. That seemed like a pretty simple change. I've also had discussions with both Commissioner Hatfield and Commissioner Carlton on another board rule change, considering consent agenda or a change in that. Commissioner Carlton, would you like to lead on this?
A motion or discussion, or?
Discussion, yeah.
Discussion on that. Well, if you're moving public comment before the approval of the consent agenda, then any comments regarding our consent agenda can be made then, and that removes the necessity for item 2 under C, consent agenda, where the public can take something to discuss more the consent agenda. That discussion can take place in public comment, and that removes the necessity for that.
Okay. Commissioner Hatfield, additional input?
Yeah, it's unusual to allow the public, as opposed to limiting it to commissioners, to remove items from the consent agenda. By moving the limited public comment up, anyone who has a concern with an item on the consent agenda can certainly express that, but they then need to convince one or more of the commissioners of the propriety of removing it from the consent agenda. So I think this still gives them input, but it keeps the action of removing something limited to commissioners.
Okay. Additional comments?
I'd like to make, and maybe Michael can say whether this is necessary or not. Item C, consent agenda, go to 4. Is everyone on that page? Okay, there will be no discussion of any item on the consent agenda. If a request for discussion or a question is raised concerning a consent agenda item before the vote, then that item shall be removed from the consent agenda and voted on separately. And it seems like you should add by a commissioner in there to just clean that up, because this is a change from our past practice. Is that necessary, Michael, or?
It doesn't hurt, it's just clarifies, so certainly if leaves no room for interpretation there, so
So in the second sentence, this is where it should go in. If a request for discussion or a question is raised concerning a consent agenda item, then right there, by a commissioner before the vote, that's where I feel it should go in. It's just a clarification.
I'm fine with that. I do think also the references on I and then limited public comment, so the B1, G, and S, those references need to reflect the new lettering.
Yes.
I'm just making sure that
We're
I
getting-
got the notes, and then I'll quickly make sure I have everything correct when you're finished.
So all this does is Pledge of Allegiance, roll call, limited public comment at a BOC, at a Board of Commissioners meeting, which is moved up from item H up to item E at this point. And then we'll go through and do everything else as in order, but as far as approving the agenda. So that gives anybody an opportunity who wants to comment on an agenda item. And I guess there's two things that any individual can reach out to any commissioner at any point if they have questions or concerns about something that's on the consent agenda item and request their commissioner take it off. So this isn't the only way to comment on something. So I think this is a fairly minor change to the board rules as a whole, so. And then everything else pretty much would stay the same. We're just going to renumber those and go, so. And if you look at page 7, I think that's the copy Michael gave us. It's just got the page 7 of the board rules gives you the red line version of that, basically taking out where it says consent agenda item number 2. During the approval of the written agenda, the chairperson shall announce that if a citizen wishes to comment on an item on the consent agenda, please request such as at that time. If a request is made, then the item can be removed. So we're taking that item 2 out of that consent agenda and making the adjustments by a commissioner on item 4. Further discussion on those items?
And then there's also the cleanup on,
Yeah, there's a few
The reference is on page 8
on page 8, yes.
to the specific limited public comment. So once I make that cleanup, I'll figure out what those numbers and letters will be, and we'll change those references or correct those accordingly.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of the rules of procedure and regulations as amended in the draft presented by Michael Brown.
Support.
Motion by Hatfield, support by Getty, for adoption of the board rules. 24, Resolution 24-03, a resolution adopting the rules of the Berry County Board of Commissioners. The resolution states, whereas the rules of procedures and regulations of the Berry County Board of Commissioners establishes the County Board of Commissioners general rules of procedures and committee structure, Now therefore be it resolved that the Berry County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts the attached rules of procedures and regulations of the Berry County Board of Commissioners effective January 2nd, 2024. Any further discussion?
Does this then include the insertion of by Commissioner Mike Alden?
Yep,
Okay.
that'll include the amendments. Okay. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Carlton,
Yes, aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Hatfield,
Aye.
Campbell. Tunison. Jackson.
Aye. The adoption of board rules is approved.
Doster?
Oops.
Oh,
Sorry, did we miss Doster?
I'm sorry, Doster. Yeah,
Aye.
sorry.
It seemed a little short there.
Sorry.
but- Adoption of board rules is approved. Appointment of committees by chairperson. Typically, in a two-year election cycle, what we've done in the past is when we've made committee assignments that typically we've kept those for a couple years. There's some value to continuation when you're on a board. I know that it takes a while to learn how some of those boards work, especially the more complicated they are. So we prefer that you stick with those board assignments. I did receive a communication from Commissioner Doster with some time scheduling issues and some things like that. I'd like to approve the committee appointments for the time being as standing. I was out of town for a family issue, but Mark, if you want to talk to, I know you made some good points on some of those things. If you'd like to talk to the commissioners and look at potentially exchanging committee assignments, I don't have any problem with that. And we can reassign or adjust those as needed after you guys talk to them. So,
Okay.
So I don't see any, I thought it was a good suggestion, so I don't see any problem with it. It just, we didn't have a lot of time to work on them over the holidays, so. But if you can reach out, or together we will, and we'll see if we can make it all work for everybody, so. But is there further discussion on committee assignments? Okay. I moved. Okay, appointment of committees by the chairperson. I move to confirm the chairperson's appointments of the members of the committee. Is there a motion?
So moved. Hatfield.
Support Campbell.
Motion by Hatfield, support by Campbell, to confirm the chairperson's appointments of members to committees of the Board of Commissioners. Michael, was there a resolution attached to that also?
There is not for.
Okay. Okay.
Next items do not have.
Do we need a roll call vote on that as well?
You do not.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. Adoption of the 2024 meeting schedules for committees of the whole and Board of Commissioners. If you got a chance to look at those, I don't know if you saw anything interesting on there, Michael, but it looked very similar to what we have done in the past, so.
It is. The committee of the whole is standard through the year until you get to December, and then we have adjusted it so that it's like this year. You'll have a committee of the whole on December 3rd, so you'll only have one committee of the whole, the first one. Bouncing to the board schedule, the second page, then on December 10th, you'll go to a board meeting. And then on December 17th, instead of it being a committee of the whole, it will be your final board meeting for the year. And then the following week, which is Christmas, you won't have a meeting.
Okay. And I see September 24th, 2024 is when the MAC conference is scheduled, which would potentially interfere with the Board of Commissioners meeting schedule. I think we just need to wait till we get there and see how many commissioners are able to attend and if we'll have quorum or not at that point. Does that make sense?
I'm fine with that. I don't think we ended up with a large group going this year, so.
No,
it is
just John and I.
Just you and John. It's at the Grand Traverse this year, and so that's fine.
Okay. Discussion or questions for Michael? All right. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the attached 2024 meeting schedule for regular meetings of the Committee of the Whole and for Board of Commissioners.
So moved.
Support.
Was that Colton?
Yes.
Motion by Colton, support by Getty, for approval of the attached 2024 meeting schedules for the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole and for the Board of Commissioners. Any additional discussion? All those in,
The chair retains the right to cancel a meeting with proper notice, is that correct?
yes.
Okay.
Yep. If there's a limited agenda or no agenda items, we can cancel the meetings. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion is approved. Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes. Hearing none, I appreciate you coming out for our organizational meeting for 2024. We are adjourned. Good morning and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting for January 2nd, 2024. Please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Limited public comment. At this time, anyone wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes. I was hoping you'd say something. I was feeling cheated.
Rick Moore, Irving Township. I wish to remind members and guests to use the microphone or speak in your outdoor voice. Most of the people that get up from the audience do that. I notice that the board members tend to talk amongst themselves and not use the microphone as much as I would like. But hey, I'm going to go out and buy some of them $6,000 hearing aids so I can hear what the heck you guys are saying. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. And I'm very glad that the board is continuing without a whole bunch of changes because like we all know, it takes a while to learn the job. And it's very important to have the institutional knowledge of how to do that constructively for the entire county. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Additional public comment? Hearing none, we'll move ahead with our agenda. Heather Wing, farmland preservation application for the Carpenter Farm.
Good morning, Commissioners. In November, we the state grant application cycle was announced, and the board, the Conservation Easement Board, voted to support the Carpenter Farm moving forward. The Carpenter Farm had previously applied in 2019 and was subsequently not approved for state funding. They went forward with ASEP funding, and that easement has not closed. So they are still eligible to seek the state funding. They are receiving a percentage of their land value from federal funds, and then this would be state funds, and then their local matching funds is their donation. So that follows right in line with our ordinance and how it's set up to fund the development right purchase. So Mr. Carpenter passed away prior to, I want to say in 20, before COVID. He passed away before this process was even complete. But Mrs. Carpenter would still like to proceed with the application.
Okay. And we did an application. This is an application. It's not a final action.
Nope. This is an application. The previous one we did was for ASEP funding.
There we go.
And that was for the Butler Farm. The Carpenters have already been approved for ASEP funding. We were just waiting to close. We have to update their appraisal, which we will have to do anyways if they get selected for the state. Because their appraisal is over 3 years old, we have to get a new one with all the land values that have changed and fluctuated. ASEP has requested that we get a new one. So we'll be voting on a provider for that Thursday when we have our meeting.
Okay. How long is the process? Do you anticipate?
Sometimes it takes 2 years. If they are accepted in February, they would probably Barry is like ready to close except for the appraisal, which takes about 30 to 45 days. So this project, if they're selected the end of February, 1st of March, or I don't remember exactly the date, they could close relatively quickly.
Okay.
And I think the Butler Farm, I don't know when the selection for the ASEP is, but that will be on hold until they get that notification. So if they're selected, I think Barry's got almost everything done for that farm as well.
All right, and you're saying for the Carpenters, this could be a fairly quick process?
This could be done, well, they have to have their ASEP funding closed by, I think it's August 1st. They got an extension. We had a snafu with a consultant that we were using, and Barry picked it up and got an extension for it, and so I think we have until August 1st to close.
Okay, perfect. And that is in the same timeline with the state of Michigan for the additional funding they're requiring?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Questions from commissioners?
Is there a reason that the total acreage was changed? Was it just a computation error, or was it?
Probably.
Okay. Wasn't anything added later that
No.
that you're aware of? Okay.
Okay, if there are no further questions, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the 2023 local farmland preservation application from the Carpenter Farm and approval to submit the Larry and Vanessa Carpenter Farm as the applicant from Berry County for the Michigan Agricultural Preservation Fund Board Local Farmland Preservation Program for fiscal year 2024 application cycle.
So moved, Campbell.
Support Hatfield.
Motion by Campbell, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the 2023 local farmland preservation application from the Carpenter Farm and approval to submit the Larry and Vanessa Carpenter Farm as the applicant from Berry County to the Michigan Agricultural Preservation Fund Board Local Farmland Preservation Program for fiscal year 2024 application cycle. Additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Heather.
Commissioners. See you
Happy New
next
Year.
week.
Next up, Michael Brown.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Looks like we have 3 of these reclassification requests.
I do, yes. So the first of them is a request to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reclassify one of the assistant public defender positions, which is currently a grade level on the BCCEA, which is the Courthouse Employees Association bargaining agreement pay scale, to a senior assistant public defender position, which is a grade 13 on the Employees Association pay scale, as described in attached job description, effective 10/1 of 2023. This comes out of, well, let me back up real quick. So the legal staff of the Public Defender's Office consists of a chief public defender and one assistant public defender. The 2023-2024, and the reason it's 2023-2024, and the reason this one becomes effective 10/1 is that it's a grant cycle. So when we talk about 2023-2024 in light of this one, it's not 24 months, it's the 12 months beginning October 1 of 23 through September 30 of 2024. So the budget for the Public Defender's Office, which is supported by the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission 2023-2024 grant, includes funding for a chief public defender, which is a grade 15, a senior assistant public defender, this grade 13, and then an assistant public defender, a grade 11. And this request is to take one of the assistants and reclassify, in this case him, Bill William Renner, as the chief assistant public defender. If you'll recall, the Public Defender or the Indigent Defense Commission created standards that we have been working through over time to effectively create some equity and parity in the public defender space for indigent defense with the prosecutorial side of the legal system. And we've worked our way through that. One of the standards, Standard 8, I believe it is pushing towards and requires that there be pay equity and parity between the offices. So that was taken into account when we reviewed this. This doesn't get completely to that point, and the classification committee's recommendation was based on the fact that the office isn't developed to the level yet of the prosecutor's office. It may get there. Right now, the public defender's office relies on contract attorneys and not as many in-house. I think over time, we're going to see that become more common, and the public defender will rely on external contracts for maybe more specialty items, But I don't want to get ahead of myself either. The issue, and you may have heard amongst your peers as you went to conferences that this standard has created some level of consternation because the state is dictating how much now folks should get paid. This recommendation isn't completely based on that, if you may. It's based on our classification committee reviewing the job descriptions and evaluating it and making a recommendation where it should be paid based on parity internal to our organization. So we feel comfortable with where it's at. I will advocate that the public defender felt that it should be higher, but she also wasn't, if you make an appeal, she's okay with it going forward as it is. But I think you'll probably, over the next few years, depending on what the Indigent Defense Commission does, see this evolve even further.
Michael, how often does a classification committee meet?
As needed.
Okay.
So they went for a period. We did a complete reclassification study in 2016. I think we implemented it. It's this binder. The binder has resulted in a file folder full, or a file cabinet full of work that went into it. And then we implemented the job descriptions that came with the classification study. So we did two things during that time. We looked at every job description and we went back to every employee. Each employee filled out a job evaluation, let me rephrase that, a job description questionnaire first. The department head reviewed those to make sure that what the employee said, first we wanted to get from the employee, what is it that you feel like you're doing? And then the departments reviewed those and said, yeah, we either agree with or modified that information. That was provided to Siegel. Waters was the consultant that conducted the study. Out of that, they created job descriptions for every position. And then from there, we took a look at internal and external parity, trying to look at our external comparables to see how our pay ranged in comparison to them, but also internally to make sure that, of course, like positions were paid similarly, but then there are positions that are dissimilar in what they do, but end up deserving similar pay based on the difficulty and the responsibility of the position, even though, and the point is, right, as we go through this process, we know people, so we begin to have a bias based on people and how hard they work, as well as jobs. If we have an acumen for a particular area, for mechanical, we understand what the folks that are mechanical in the organization do and run the risk of valuing them more than what we do somebody that we don't know or a job that we don't know. And that was the whole point, is to put into place a system. So when we do a reclassification, this committee asks for that job evaluation manual, job description questionnaire to be filled out. And then there's a job evaluation manual that we go through that provides some rigor and a process to say, how do we evaluate these so that we're doing it on a regular basis? I'm not suggesting it's perfect, we're human, those of us that are doing it, but there's a process with some rigor.
Do department heads request this?
It can be requested by a department head or an employee.
Okay.
An employee can request it once every 2 years, so there is a limit to how often you can come back and ask that it be done. But yes, a department head or an employee can request it. And then when we get a request, we call a meeting of the classification committee, so we meet as needed. We've had a few, you may recall, it seems like we've had a few lately we're starting to get, I don't know what that date will be when the county should consider doing another classification study. 10 years seems to be a rule of thumb. We're getting into the 8 years. We're starting to approach a point. It's not an inexpensive process. I think we invested $60,000 or $70,000 into the study when we did it in 2016. So we want to get as much out of it as we can, but also it affects the single largest expenditure of our county, so our staff. So I'll stop there for a minute. I've said a lot.
So the state of Michigan now wants to dictate that regardless of whether you're in Traverse City, Detroit, or Berry County, that pay equity is a thing, that they want to dictate.
Yeah, I don't, not to get into mix the politics with a reclassification.
Yeah,
I
probably a bad
don't
question.
mean to,
No.
but there is,
You're right.
but you may have recalled, and I guess maybe the point that I want you to walk away with is that we took a look at it, and there is gonna be some tension that exists, and it needs to be looked at. I mean, Carrie Selleck is the chief public defender. We didn't hire her, and I don't expect her to advocate. I mean, I want her, all of our department heads to be reasonable and understand the other side, but I also want them to advocate for their profession. That's why we hired them. So I'm sure this will be a continuing topic this winter at MAC and next year as they begin to look at this standard more deeply. But I feel confident that the classification committee did a real nice job of figuring out where it belongs in regard to our pay structure.
Questions for Michael?
Yeah, I have a question. So it basically boils down to is that the external part of this is pressuring our, to have to raise wages for our people to stay here, right?
Yeah, so the state of Michigan, if you're talking about that piece, what the
Yeah.
state wants to do is tie it to a percentage of a Supreme Court justice's salary. So they effectively are, as I understand it, tiers. You know, your Supreme Court justice would be 100%, and then you have these tiers, and they want public defenders, because the largest portion of the funding for the office comes from, or at least a significant portion of it comes from the state of Michigan. They now want to say that we have to pay at a certain level. And in many cases and in many counties, that compensation ends up being higher than what the prosecutor is making in the county, and that becomes where I think the rub is. And I don't want to get into who's more valuable, right?
Right.
It really isn't about who's more valuable. I think it's about a compensation system, and are you going to have a compensation system that covers all, or are you going to have, to your point, the state of Michigan dictating one here and one there?
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because the
Mr. Chair?
staff are really, really good staff and deserve everything. It has
agree
nothing to do with the
I agree with that
staff.
wholeheartedly.
Mr. Colton?
Now, you said that, okay, so we have in-house defenders, but sometimes we use an external defender. How is that determined? Which ones go to an in-house defender? And then how do you choose which lawyer becomes the external defender?
And Mark may know it, anyway, as I understand it, so our public defender handles all of the, and one of the issues that, the standards that needed to be met was counsel at first, there's a term for it. But basically that every individual who might be indigent has counsel immediately, if you may. So our chief public defender manages running the office as well as handling that. And she does have some caseload, as I understand it, in the court. And then Bill Renner, our assistant public defender, handles all of the district court caseload. It's the felony caseload, as I understand it, that is then contracted out to, if you'll remember, there are 7 or 10 attorneys on that contract list that comes before you every year, I think, or on a periodic basis.
Yep.
They take on the felony caseload. And we will be bringing in another assistant public defender. That person, I'm guessing, won't take on the felony caseload immediately, depending on their abilities, but that then start taking in some of that in-house. But I really, before I get too far into giving you misinformation, if you will, should get Carrie Selleck, and I can ask her to come over and provide an update. She'd be happy to. I just know that
Yeah, I was just I know that I know that when I was in the legislature, it got out of hand in places like Detroit, where they would farm out hundreds of cases at once to a certain law firm, and the people, they just, you don't get that much money per case, but when you get like this hundreds of cases at once, and then they would provide substandard defense, because they were just going for.
We have, I think it's that 7 or 10 contract public defenders, and there's a process that they're compensated. It was based on per case, and then if you had a depending on the severity, and again, I apologize, I'm not even coming close to giving you the details, but based on the severity, there might be, for example, if it was a murder, there would be some additional compensation or points awarded to it. One of the changes to the standard is that's going to go away, and it will now become an hourly basis, just for that purpose, so that we believe that the system that we had worked very efficiently, very effectively, very fairly, but the state of Michigan and the Indigent Defense Commission and their standards have said no, it needs to go to an hourly basis. So at some point in the future, all cases are going to be billed on an hourly basis. You're going to see the next reclassification is for the office coordinator. That person now is going to take on the responsibility of doing all sorts of, reviewing all sorts of hourly bills as opposed to bills per case, if you may. But again, it's a great conversation to have our Chief Public Defender, Carrie Selleck, come in and
This has
talk about.
just ballooned.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the state of Michigan is paying for a lot of this, but it's still just ballooned from where we started with indigent defense 4 or 5 years ago to where it is now, so.
Yeah, there's a couple of standards that have become expensive. The state, fortunately, from a funding model, we were capped at the amount that we have to contribute. And then it's indexed on an inflationary basis. So the state picks up all of these additional costs. And so far, they continue to keep paying.
Michael, I see that in the description, it says effective 10/1/2023. Is this retroactive then?
This one would be yes.
Okay. Additional questions for Michael?
This one we started quite early because of the discussions we've had. This one we have been working on.
Okay.
I do have a question. Just how far back in 23 are we going here? I didn't really see that.
Just to the start of the grant, 10/1.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay, if there are no further questions, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reclassify one of the Assistant Public Defender positions, grade level 11 on the BCCEA pay scale, to Senior Assistant Public Defender position, grade level 13 on the BCCEA pay scale, as described in the attached job description, effective 10/1/2023.
So
Someone like-
moved, Doster.
Support Hatfield.
Motion by Doster, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reclassify one of the Assistant Public Defender positions, grade level 11 on the BCCEA pay scale, to a Senior Assistant Public Defender position, grade level 13 on the BCCEA pay scale, as described in the attached job description, effective 10/1/2023. Additional discussion or questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. So next, we have the approval to reclassify Public Defender Administrative Assistant position. And I think, any more detail, any more granular, or is it the kind of
No,
this-
this
what we
is
just
just a
discussed?
Yeah, this is reclassify the Public Defender Administrative Assistant position, which is a grade level 4, to a Public Defender Office Coordinator position, which is grade level 6, as described, effective 10/1/23.
Questions for Michael?
If you're curious, under funding required, it is included in the grant, but I did acknowledge how much the annual cost is for that.
Yeah.
Both of those have that annual cost identified, so be happy to
Okay.
answer any questions.
The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reclassify the Public Defender Administrative Assistant position, grade level 4 on the BCCEA pay scale, to Public Defender Office Coordinator position, grade level 6 on the BCCEA pay scale, as described in the attached job description, effective 10/1/2023.
So moved Hatfield.
Support, Getty.
Motion by Hatfield, support by Getty, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reclassify the Public Defender Administrative Assistant position, grade level 4 on the BCCEA pay scale, to Public Defender Office Coordinator position, grade level 6 on the BCCEA pay scale, as described in the attached job description, effective 10/1/2023. Additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. And finally, reclassification request for Senior Deputy Clerk.
Sure, so this is a request to recommend to the board approval to reclassify the Senior Deputy County Clerk from a grade level 7 on the Employees Association pay scale to a level 9, effective with the pay period beginning 1/6/24. So with this one, when the first deputy clerk / payroll specialist retired, if you'll recall, the payroll functions were absorbed into county administration. The more progressively responsible county clerk functions, which included oversight of deputy clerks and performing chief election officer duties, were then assigned to the senior deputy clerk. Accordingly, the position description was updated and reviewed by the classification committee, and after their review, they placed it at a grade 9 on the pay scale. So this is a request to increase the classification from a 7 to a 9. Again, under funding. In this case, there isn't any funding that's anticipated to be required. We believe that there's adequate funding in the budget. We'll monitor that as the year goes on, but, and then I provided the amount of the annual ongoing cost.
Seems reasonable. Questions for Michael?
We also have the county clerk here if there are any questions.
This is a deputy clerk? Or
This is so, when,
Sarah Vandenberg?
it's Sarah. When Karen Barnes retired,
Yeah.
she was the first deputy clerk, and when we took the payroll functions, somebody needed to then be assigned to that responsibility. Moving to a first deputy would potentially move this position out of the union, affecting then, most importantly, the retirement benefits. So working with the attorney and the county clerk, we've looked at it and said that the best course of action for the office and for staff is to title it a senior deputy clerk, assign those responsibilities, and go forward. So that's what we're recommending.
Okay. Additional questions? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reclassify the senior deputy county clerk from grade level 7 on the Berry County Courthouse Employees Association pay scale to a grade level 9 on the Berry County Courthouse Employees Association pay scale, effective with pay period beginning 1/6/2024.
So moved.
Motion by Tunison. Support by Hatfield to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reclassify the senior deputy county clerk from grade level 7 on the Berry County Courthouse Employees Association pay scale to a grade level 9 on the Berry County Courthouse Employee Association pay scale, effective with the pay period beginning 1/6/2024. Additional questions or discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes. We like it when it's quiet some days to start the year out, but commissioner comments. Commissioner Tunison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sharon's right about one thing. We did accomplish quite a bit last year, but this year's going to be a lot on our plate still, between wind and solar, all kinds of things we have to, the jail, we have to start trying to figure out that situation. So looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of challenges, but love sitting here with all you guys. So,
Commissioner Campbell.
Well, I hope everybody had a happy and successful holiday season, and I enjoyed the peace and quiet too.
Commissioner Hatfield.
I have nothing else.
Commissioner Doster.
I have nothing further.
Commissioner Colton.
Nothing.
Commissioner Getty.
I'll echo Commissioner Tunison's comments. I think we have a lot to be proud of what we've accomplished, but I think the challenge is clear in 2024. We have a lot more to accomplish, and during an election year. And I think that that's challenging for all of us. But I think it's something that every commissioner sitting at this table is up for.
Absolutely. Well, happy 2024. I can't believe it's here. It was quick. I want to thank everyone who sent messages, cards, the flowers. Thank you for the loss of my brother over the holiday. That was not an easy time to lose a family member, so we're getting through that, but I appreciate all the support and the notes and the encouragement and the kindness. So let's have a great 2024. And again, if there are things in your district that are important that we need to bring to the forefront, to the attention, I'm just keeping a list of things that we've got to keep our eye on for this year. And I know every district's got some different challenges, especially with wind and solar being kind of concentrated on one part of the county. We've got a few things to work through, so, but we shall. So I appreciate you guys and all you do for your constituents and for the county. Let's move forward and have a great year. Thank you.